Thank you very much. Just ignore all of that that silly banter. So there you go. I'll hand over to you. It's probably appropriate in a lead up to a discussion on the Performing Arts Precinct.
Tēnā tātou katoa, and may the 4th be with you. It was really nice to hear the climate aspects of both of those previous presentations. But yeah, I would like to speak about the need to fund a temporary community space within the Performing Arts Precinct. The specific proposal that I'm presenting on is actually going to be presented on Monday. Through a quirk of scheduling, I'm speaking in support of that proposal today. So essentially that proposal is saying, can we please activate the Performing Arts Precinct with an amphitheatre, some small studios, some co-working spaces, room for some food trucks, so we can get community arts into the Performing Arts Precinct now. For me, life revolves around the performing arts and life revolves around the city centre. So I believe passionately that we can make the city centre a hub of creativity, of diversity, of inclusion, and of world-class performances. Unfortunately, Ōtautahi does not have the range of performing spaces it needs. Companies that had their own theatres before the earthquakes now have to perform in schools. We don't have a medium-sized theatre to attract touring shows, let alone to support the needs that exist within our own community. Now that's a huge problem, and I'm not expecting that you can magically conjure up another big, expensive theatre. But what we can do is use a temporary space to focus our diverse community of performers into the Performing Arts Precinct, to really activate that space and to really embed into our psyche the idea that the Performing Arts Precinct belongs to our entire community, that the precinct is accessible to independent performers and producers, tangata whenua, circus performers, music festivals, cultural festivals, right through to the larger theatre companies. In 2018, I had the pleasure of volunteering at the Little Andromeda pop-up theatre tent in the Performing Arts Precinct. And that was a really exciting time. It showed that if we create a space, even a temporary space, at the mercy of the weather, Christchurch performers will step up to the game. For 2 months, we had a packed lineup of dozens of performances, several festivals, all using that space. It was absolutely brimming with life. It was growing our independent art industry, and it was presenting works at a price point that was accessible to low-income households. The highlight for me was a show by local comedian Ray Shipley, where we had over 200 people in that tent. I remember standing at the entrance, scanning tickets non-stop, and looking in awe at this endless queue. Now, this was a comedy with a purpose. It was comedy that spoke to marginalised communities and empowered them. And it really proved that when we create accessible spaces for the unique artistic voices in our community, the audiences will come, and the audiences will be big. And that's why I'm hoping this year you will allocate funds to temporary, accessible spaces within the Performing Arts Precinct. Because if we put community at the heart of the precinct now, it will stay there for generations to come. Kia ora, I'm happy to take any questions.
Kia ora, thank you so much. And I think everyone's got fond memories of that time. I didn't make that performance, but I've been to other performances of Ray Shipley. Is there Tim and Sarah?
What do you see Creative New Zealand's role in this? Because we've obviously put a hell of a lot of money into a number of venues, and some of them are struggling. So where does Creative New Zealand come into this?
Yeah, I think the challenge is that Creative New Zealand is being asked to support a lot of different things right now with an industry that's struggling. And so that's why the focus of this particular proposal isn't on trying to do something really big and expensive. It's trying to do something cheaper, temporary, that just activates the space and really at least creates that mindset that the community is part of that space.
Sarah. Sorry.
Thanks so much. It'd be fair to say that while Tim's right about the amount of money we've spent on some quite large, kind of grand facilities and things, what is it about a more temporary community-based space that those other ones just actually don't provide for?
Yeah, it's really actually having that diversity of voices and having it inclusive to the entire community, because we have some established big players in the industry that do a really good job, but what we need is that performing arts precinct also being welcoming to those different perspectives that don't currently have an outlet and that don't currently have a way to share their voice and to, I guess, attract people that maybe don't feel part of those bigger spaces.
Yeah, and actually that was going to be my follow-up is the audience. And so while we've talked about the performance spaces and the performers, my sort of when I look at those big spaces, they tend to have a type of audience, the more established ones.
So what
sort of audiences are we getting through sort of Little Andromeda and those other?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of. What's really exciting is every time you usher a different show, it's a different audience, it's a different demographic. One of my favourite shows was in the last year or two was Te Rongo Mai Whiti, which was completely in te reo, featuring a lot of kapa haka, and it was like a really powerful, deeply emotional performance from performers that otherwise wouldn't have had the chance to do that, to be a part of theatre. And even though, I couldn't understand many of the words, I learnt so much from that performance. And so it really brings together different parts of our community, which is just really exciting.
Yeah, and thanks.
I'll let Yanni ask his question since we're ahead of time.
Oh, thank you. And I appreciate that we're going to get more details. I mean, I'm just really interested in the ability for the community performers to use the town hall and the library, because we've got these two amazing facilities that, the library shuts at 8:00. So I just wondered if there'd been any consideration or thought around what we could do there to help.
Yeah, I think performing spaces work best when they've got all the different facilities that they need integrated together in terms of catering and potentially drinks and when it has, it's designed with that specific purpose in mind. So I think the intent of this particular proposal is very much to be able to integrate into that space and integrate into Tūranga, which is just there. But it is about providing, facilities that aren't available elsewhere and attracting things that otherwise really wouldn't be able to use those existing spaces.
I mean, thank you very much for your submission. I mean, it's just, I think it's given us food for thought. And since we're about to break for lunch, that's a very appropriate submission to close the morning on. So thank you very much for taking the trouble to come in, and I can't let you go without saying I love your suit.
Thank you.
So thank you.
I look forward to the other submissions on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you.